So let's get started and just do a few of these. They'll be really quick. It's a review on system of equations, which you'll need to know for your review packet. So starting here, we're probably really good at identifying what's the slope and what's the y-intercept. So anytime you see like $1 per mile or per hour or something like that, hopefully that rings a bell that that's a slope. Because the only thing you can really not get right here is mixing up slopes and y-intercepts. Also, you might notice that the numbers are like really different, like 140. You can kind of see that, well, that's probably going to go on the y-axis, so it probably has to be a y-intercept. You can't fit 100 on the x-axis, so it makes it a y-intercept just by that alone. So a little hint that might help you. So we're going to have two graphs here, one for hertz. Alright, and I'll color code these. Enterprise. So we have hertz, Amber's driving hertz, and it's going to be $100 plus $1 per mile. And we have, Amber also can rent over here at Enterprise, but it can be $40 to start, but $5 per mile. Okay. So two ways of solving this. We can use something called the substitution method because they're both equal to y, which means we can just set them equal to one another. So we can say 100 plus x equals 40 plus 5x. That would be one way. The other way, of course, would be the graph and see where they intersect. So remember, we spent 2 weeks solving these problems, but really it was only one problem you learned how to solve 3 different ways: graphing it, substituting it, or eliminating it. So this is both graphing and substitution. So we can solve this pretty quickly. Just subtract 40 on both sides, and then maybe subtract x on both sides. I do all the same steps, get variables to one side, and numbers to the other. You could have easily subtracted 5x and subtracted 100 instead. It's the same thing. So we have 60, right, equals 4x, right? So 4 times what is 60? Do a little division, and you get 15. And in this case, we know the x-axis here is miles, so I'm going to say 15 miles. So we know that's the break-even point, we called that. So at one point before 15 miles, if you drive technically 0 through 14 miles, one company will be cheaper, but after 15 miles, that's when the other company becomes cheaper. That's what a break-even point is. It's that exact middle point where one you can keep at the cheapest rate depending on how many miles you're driving. Alright, so now we can go through graphically and see, well, which one's cheaper and when. That's the nice thing about graphing. You can actually see which company's better. So let's do the hertz. Blue is 100. Now, it's a little weird on this scale because they're counting by tens, and our slope is 1. Alright, our slope is 1 here. So what we need to do is go from 1, which is up 1 over 1, and since the y-axis counts by tens, I'm going to change this to 10 over 10. So I'm going to go up $10 and over 10 miles because my scale here isn't counting by 1. So I can't really go up to 101 and over 1 day because even down here in miles it's counting by 2, 4, 6, 8. So I'm just going to adjust my slope. They're still equal. 10 divided by 10 is 1. Okay. So I'm going to go up 10 over 10 days. Right here. That'd be right here. Okay, there's 10 days. I went up $10. I can go up 10 more and go over 10 more days to 20. Should be right here. And you can see there's a pattern there. Just follow that pattern. There we go. And then do the same thing with Enterprise. Start at 40. That'd be right here. And we're going to go up 5. But the same thing. Let's see here. Can I go up 5? Yeah. Same idea, though. instead of going up 5/1, since this is counted by tens, each square is 10 here, I'm going to go up 10/2. Because 10 divided by 2 is equal to 5/1, so that will work. So I can go up 10 over 2 days, and each square to the right is counted as 2, so that helps out. So we can just go up 1/1, just like that. There we go. And as predicted, the break-even point right here, and if you follow it straight down, what number is this? 15 miles. That's what we already knew. That's where it's going to break even at 15 miles. And we can also follow it to the left to find out, well, what's the cost, the break-even cost. So we've already answered number 4, like 15 miles. We know that. When will Hertz be cheaper? Hertz is the blue. So it looks like blue is cheaper after the 15 miles. So we know Enterprise is cheaper from here, but once you get to 15 miles, that's when Hertz becomes cheaper. So we can say something like Hertz is cheaper after 15 miles. Okay. Or when you're driving more than 15 miles. Yeah, driving more than 15 miles. Which in all likelihood, if you rent a car, you're probably going to drive more than 15 miles. Alright, so there is an example of the graphing and substitution method that we did with a word problem, which is going to be similar to your task problem for your final on a week from today, Friday. It's going to be very similar to this. Okay, you have to graph two equations, see where they intersect, which one's better deal, that kind of thing. Okay. So B is very similar. I'll let you guys do B on your own. Okay. Yep. Question? No, it starts at 100 right here. That's your y-intercept, and then your slope would be, yeah. And this one has y-intercept is 0, but a slope of 20 over 1. Okay, so flip it over to C real fast, then I'll let you guys work. C and D are examples of the elimination method, the other method. So there's 3 methods. We did 2 of them on letter A. We'll do the third one right here. So it goes something like this. We got 2 burritos, and we got 4 enchiladas, and that costs $18. And then we got another order that's 2 more burritos, and only 2 enchiladas this time, and that costs $13. So you can see the format's different. It's not y equals, and they're set up in what's called standard form, both the variables on the left, the cost on the right. Now we did something where if we added these up, one of the variables would eliminate. Now unfortunately here, if we add these up and add these up, nothing eliminates. So when that happened, we had another little trick, and that was to change one of these, I guess, so that they do add up to 0. So if I change the top equation, if I multiply this by -1, that would make this negative 2b, right? And that would cancel out with the 2b below it. But you could also multiply the bottom equation by -1 and get the same results, right? Because now the bottom's -2 and the top's +2, and those cancel out. But wait, there's more. You could even multiply the bottom equation by -2, right? Because then over here you'd have -4e, which would cancel with the top here, which is +4e. Okay? And if you're really tricky, you can multiply the top equation by -1/2, because that would make this -2. Half of 4 is 2. Make it a negative, and that would cancel with the 2e right below. So there's really 4 correct ways to go about this problem, just showing you all this so that if you actually check with somebody else's work, you don't say, wait a minute, you did this, I did that, yours is wrong or mine must be wrong. There's 4 correct ways of doing this. And we have to be okay with that. We have to be comfortable with that. As long as your answers come out to the same thing, you're all right. But just for simplicity purposes, let's just stick to multiplying by -1. All right. So we have negative 2b minus 4e equals 18. And the bottom's going to stay the same. Now, what classic mistake did I just make on purpose? Yeah, so often people will just multiply the left two, but you got to do the 18 as well, so that's a negative 18. And you do know on these problems, if you got an answer that's negative, like that would not make sense, right? If you got a burrito cost negative $5, something's up. So that's another thing. If you're doing this wrong, or if you make a little mistake, forget to distribute, you'll get negative answers. Impossible, can't do it. So now let's go ahead and solve it. We have a variable eliminating. The b's eliminate, hence the elimination method. We have -4 plus 2, which is -2. And you might say you can't have negative because it can't cost negative, but the other side's negative as well, -5. So the negatives end up canceling out, and it's fine. So we have to divide both sides by -2, and we have enchilada costs 5/2 dollars. Now, does that make any sense? 5/2 dollars. No. So this is one of those cases. Most of the time, I want you to leave your answer as an improper fraction, just like this. But if it's a word problem, decimals are probably more appropriate. So convert this to a decimal. What's 5 divided by 2 as a decimal? And you get. If you need to, you can go off to the side and say, okay, 2 goes into 5 how many times? Okay, 2 goes into 5 2 times. You get 4. 2 goes into 10 5 times. Right? So we get $2.50. $2.50 for an enchilada. Okay, are we finished? No. Remember, there's two things we're buying here, burritos and enchiladas. So we got to find out how much a burrito costs. So I'm going to plug this thing right into here. So 2 burritos plus 2 enchiladas at $2.50 cost $13. So we can solve this, work backwards, and find out how much is one burrito. Alright, so we know the 2 enchiladas cost $5, right? So that must mean if we subtract 5 on both sides, the 2 burritos cost $8, right? Which must mean if 2 burritos cost $8, one burrito costs $4. There you go. And it does say to do a check. A check just means plug it back into the other equation we didn't just use. So we use this bottom equation to figure out what B is. So use the top equation to do your check. So just plug in B is $4, the enchiladas are $2.50, and make sure it costs $18 total. If you got a different total, that would mean something was wrong. But if you calculate everything correct, it should come out to $18 exactly. Now you can answer these two just based upon this information. Now you know how much each cost. Okay, so like the front, B is similar to A. On the back, D is very similar to C. So you have one to do with graphing and substitution method, and you have one to do with this elimination method on the back. So just one of each. Should take 5 minutes to finish both. And then I'll check both 45 and 43 by the end of the period. So when you finish 45, get your 43 out from Wednesday and bring them both up to me, and then I'll check them both off and stamp them both. 44, all 8 pages due on Monday. Yeah. Okay. So that's about it. Go to work, and you have the rest of the period to get things done. So you have about 40 minutes, lots of time. Okay.